First item on the agenda is the roll call. Actually, it's the second one. I already did the first one. Commissioner Buttleman?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Commissioner Okeson, we know, will be absent tonight. Commissioner Peltzer is absent currently. Commissioner Sin?
Here.
And Commissioner Redmond is myself. I'm here. Next item is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next item, approval of minutes for the February 26th, 2019 meeting. Hopefully we all had a chance to kind of peruse them from our packet. Are there any comments on the meeting minutes?
Motion to approve as submitted.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Is there a second to approve the meeting minutes from last month?
Seconded.
Commissioner Sin seconded? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We have meeting minutes. All right. Next item, new business. The first item, 5A, we have a presentation by City Manager Melinda Coleman on conducting city business and public meetings. Would you like to go ahead and take it away?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. I am really pleased to be here. I haven't seen you for a while. I did hear from Chair Redmond at the City Council meeting when he gave your annual report for 2018, and it was an impressive list of accomplishments. So congratulations on the great work that you're doing on behalf of the city. I know the council appreciates your time and dedication, as do I in the same place, so thank you. I'm here tonight to go over some material that's a little bit dry, but it's something that I think that everybody needs to hear. I try to do this about every 3 years. You do have some newer members, and so some of you may have not heard anything about this, and I think it's just good public policy to let you know kind of what the rules of the road are in terms of how to have public meetings. So I'm going to talk about that, and then I have an ask for you at the end. So we'll get started. First of all, what we're going to cover are 4 main topics. They are the open meeting law, technology and other areas relating to the open meeting law, conducting commission meetings, and the roles of members and chair at the meetings. So question, what is the open meeting law? Basic premise of this is that meetings of public bodies should be open to the public. There is no statutory definition of that, but the courts have generally found that a meeting that is a gathering of a quorum of public officials, which you have this evening, to discuss, decide, or receive information on matters over which they have an authority. So that's what you're doing this evening. The purpose of the open meeting law is to protect the public's right to be informed, to allow the public to detect improper influence, and it gives the public a chance to provide input on areas of interest. We really strive to be transparent in what we do, and so that's why our meetings are public, that's why our minutes and agendas and packets are public, and we have a lot of information about what we do on our webpage, and all of our records of all of our meetings can be found for at least 2 years back. So we really work hard on being transparent to our residents. The basic requirements are that any time a public body meets, it must give advance notice and allow the public to attend. And that's what Sean does. She makes sure that you get all of that done for every meeting. There are penalties involved for people who violate the open meeting law. You personally can be sued for up to $13,000 or fined, and sometimes like a first offense is like $300. And the bad news about that, besides it being bad public relations, is that the city doesn't pay for any of those costs. So you are responsible for governing yourself to a certain degree. Also, if you behave badly and try not to have public meetings, then you get increased scrutiny from the public and the media, and that's also something that we try to stay away from. I did mention the penalties. There's a $300 fine, and you are required to forfeit your office after 3 separate intentional violations. Some of the common questions about open meetings are, can we have a closed meeting? And basically, a board such as the Environmental, Natural, and Resource Commission would not have a reason to have a closed meeting. The city council is allowed to do that under certain circumstances. It's really it really revolves around the sale of property, personnel issues, contract or labor contracts, lawsuits, that kind of thing. And you typically don't find yourself in that situation. But if you do, there are some rules that do apply. You would have to record the meeting, and that's really it. So I can't remember a situation where one of the advisory boards has closed a meeting, but it does really get interesting if you would try to do that. So with open meeting law and technology, we really don't have a lot of law on some of the new technologies, such as Facebook and emails, blogs, Twitter, MySpace, all of those kinds of things. But this is something that our attorney and the League of Minnesota Cities will say that it does apply, and that there have been cases where people have had to turn over their computers or their phones or their emails. And I will tell you that we have probably not a full-time person, but almost a full-time person devoted to data practices requests. And currently, this is being addressed by the League of Minnesota Cities with the legislature. And our Assistant City Manager, Mike Funk, is working on that committee to talk about data practices, because we spend almost a half-time person responding to those requests on a daily basis. So it's really important. And I'm going to get into some of the things to be concerned about with social media. So technology and the open meeting law. Does the open meeting law apply to email, social media, and similar technology? And I've kind of touched on that. The practical answer is yes. Things to be concerned about is use caution if you're communicating to each other about forwarding emails or replying all, posting things on Facebook. If more than 2 of you are Facebook friends, your quorum is 4, I guess, because you have 7. So you've got a little more leeway than the council. But the idea is to be a little bit leery of what you're doing. As I said, they are finding that this does count as open meeting law violations. So how can boards and commissions use email and other technologies without violating the law? The best approach is to have one-way communication, and that really would be like coming from Sean to all of you at once, and really limiting your email use. So kind of think in the back of your head as you're communicating with one another about city business. Is this something you would want the public or the press to see or read, because they are entitled to it? And frankly, that's one of our biggest data requests, is actually emails with me to a council member. They'll say, I want all emails from Melinda Coleman to X person. It's kind of crazy. So just kind of be cautious and do that. It's really best to work through Sean. If you have a question, have Sean respond, and usually Sean will kind of reply to all of you, so you all have the same answer and the same information. It's not to say you can't email one another, but it's best not to start that. Can we have a meeting where one or more members participate from a different location by phone or other means? And this has actually come up over the years. I'm not sure if it's come up with your committee or not, but you really can't, except for by phone or other electronic means if a health pandemic or a disaster-related emergency is occurring, or interactive by TV or video. And you can do that, but it has to be in a public space. So, for example, we have had council members dial in from a different location where they're working or whatever. They have to do that from a place that's open to the public. So it doesn't make it very practical or easy, but we have done it a few times over the years. Electronic communication through email, listservs, or other methods could violate the open meeting law if it involves 4 or more of you and if you're discussing city business. Another consideration we talk about are called serial meetings, and this is meetings of less than a quorum, but it's held serially, which means that, for example, Molly emails Ann, and then Ann emails Tom, and then Tom emails Keith. That's called a serial meeting or a conversation, and those are an open meeting law violation. So you just want to avoid doing that if you can. It's the same way with phone calls. You can't call and poll each other and say, hey, how do you feel about the nature study or whatever is not, you're supposed to deliberate that here in public. So likely violates open meeting law if the purpose is to avoid a public hearing or allow the public to participate, or if you're trying to reach an agreement not in this space. Other considerations are before or after meetings. So for example, if after the meeting you get together and you decide that you're going to go out and have coffee. Well, if there's 4 or more of you, it's okay if you're as long as you're not talking about city business. Social gatherings are okay. So don't do that. I'm old enough to have worked a long time ago before this all became public, and I actually went out for dinner with my council members before the meetings. And now that would be totally unheard of. You would never do that. But there was time when that actually happened. It was many, many, many moons ago. It really you're just likely to have created a violation if you didn't notice people and it wasn't open to the public. I just touched on this a little bit. Social gatherings are basically okay if you're not discussing city business. So you might run into each other at a social gathering, and that's fine as long as you're not talking city business, which it gets kind of tough because that's what you have in common a lot. So you really have to be careful. I know I have been in social situations with the council and they will deliberately leave the room so that if there's 2 people and they see 2 people talking, they will leave and wait till it breaks up. They'll just leave the room or leave the area so that it doesn't even look like they're having a conversation about business, city business, even if they're not. So they're very conscientious about that. There isn't a violation if city business is not discussed. The next thing is conducting meetings. How do we conduct the commission meetings? This is generally left to the commission to regulate the meeting style or procedure. Commission should adopt their rules of procedure, which you all have. There aren't any really default rules. There is a mayor's handbook that's written by the League of Minnesota Cities and Robert's Rule of Order. You really can kind of manage yourself as to how you do that. I think pretty much all of our commissions are pretty similar in how they run their meetings, and I think that makes a lot of sense. The commission should adopt bylaws. You have those. Especially, it helps, I think, meetings run smoothly. The rules should fit the needs of the commissions, and the commission should review the bylaws. I don't know if you do that every year or not, Sean, but we do them on a regular basis. I know we've updated them a few times. So, conducting meetings. Do you need to have an agenda? There's no law that says you have to have an agenda, but practicality says you should, and you do, so that's good. You should have regular meetings, which we do. You may address issues not on the agenda, but typically goes through the chair. I think you probably do that when you approve your agenda, whether you're going to add something or not. And the way our agendas are set up, everybody sort of has a chance to talk. You guys give reports if you need to. You get a report from Sean. So that works really well. Special meetings, if you need to have one, you can do that. You do have to give notice, and it's best not to address other issues than the specific reason why you're having a special meeting. And emergency meetings, you typically don't have those, but the same things kind of are required. You have to give notice and stick to whatever it is was the purpose of your meeting. The roles at commission meetings, we have the chair, vice chair, the administrator or staff, attorney, the audience members, and the commission members. And what are your roles? The chair presides over the meeting, keeps order, keeps a vote, and makes a second or keeps track of the votes and motions, participates in discussions, does not have veto power, and does not have any individual authority over any of the others on the commission. So what is the role of commissioners? Your role is to vote or make second motions, participate in discussions, and once again, you have no more authority than anyone else on the commission. And what is the role of city staff? City staff writes the reports, publishes notices, ordinances, and arranges for the recording of the meeting, which keeps the minutes. And usually we have a staff that attends and participates in the commission meetings, although they do not vote. And we assist with your reports or research as directed by you. That's sort of a two-way thing. Staff can bring things forward, and you can ask for things to get done. What is the role of a city attorney or other folks at the commission meetings? It depends on the need and city council guidance or what's in your reports or presentations. So it really depends on the kinds of business that you have before you, who else would come to your meeting and participate in that. What is the role of the audience at the commission meetings? It's mainly to observe, and they may participate as needed or allowed, or if directed by the city council to hold a specific public forum on a specific topic. And the role of the audience is to participate in open forum. They have a chance to speak at the commission. The commission may make and enforce rules such as time limits, procedures such as a sign-up sheet, and that they give their name and address, and also any other rules or guidelines that you think may be necessary. Members of the audience do not have the right to remain noisy or to be unruly or rude or disrespectful. So, what is the commission's role during open forums? Mainly it's to listen, to ask questions. Generally, do not respond or problem solve. It's really an opportunity for you to hear from residents. And at commission meetings, that can get a little bit off track sometimes, but it's generally better to let people in the audience say what they have to say, and then you as chair and the commissioners talk about it and take their advice. You might address their questions, but you don't get into this one-on-one give and take, because that tends to then get people off track, and you could lose control. So now we're to the best part, where you have questions of me, and then I do have one more ask for you after we've covered any questions that you have.
I think that was pretty comprehensive.
That was fabulously complete.
Good. And now you have a copy of it, so you can take that home and use it as your little handbook. So if you don't have, oh, Annie?
I do, yeah, so you just were talking about open forums, and I was wondering, so open forums, how are those different than, we've had some times where we have to officially, within our meeting, open a meeting for public comment. Is the open forum that you're meaning there different
Yeah.
than that?
Well, they can be the same or they can be different.
Okay.
Sometimes you may have a special meeting just to get input on some new ordinance that you're considering or some new initiative that you want input from. And so you could post it as a community forum to get your input on X.
Okay.
But generally, they're the same thing. They're interchangeable.
Okay. And then I had a question as well, like we've been discussing as a commission, the visitor presentations portion of the agenda, so I wasn't sure if maybe that prompted, in particular, you being here this evening, but, you know, we were talking at our last meeting about retitling that visitor engagement or community engagement.
Sure.
But it sounds based on, you know, what you had presented tonight, that we're not tied to any specific agenda or having our agenda mirror council's agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct. You are entitled to create your own agenda format. I would have you consider very carefully how you do that. We have done away with visitor presentation at the council meeting, and it hasn't seemed to be as big an impact as it might have been 5 years ago or so, when we didn't have email and Facebook and our webpage and communicate as well as we do otherwise. But I think you have to be a kind of a judge of how things are going too. And, you know, my advice would be to just limit it to 3 minutes, or, you know, say it has to be about something that really pertains to the work that we're doing, that kind of thing. If that doesn't work, you can always consult with me about that. I'd be happy to come in and talk to you or meet with a couple of you about ways to work with those kinds of issues. So thank you for the questions, and thank you for allowing me to give the presentation. I'm actually going to meet with every board and commission and do this for everyone. But what I wanted to ask you about this evening is something that the council directed staff to do about a month ago. And that was to get your feedback on how you feel about the interview process when you apply to be on a board or commission. Because there's a feeling by some of the council members that maybe it's a little intimidating to stand here and have 5 or 6, 7 people firing questions. Is there a way to make it more comfortable? I won't say less formal, because we do have questions we need to ask, and we want to see how you respond to them. So is there any suggestions from you to how to make that process a little bit easier or better?
Looks like you had something?
Actually, it is intimidating, but I applied, I went through the application process for oh my gosh.
Council.
For the Met Council, and it's the same type of thing with even more people. And you have that timed here, talk about yourself basically, and answer these 3 questions in 5 minutes or whatever. And I actually kind of appreciated the time limit, and I realized that, as people who know me, I like to talk a lot, and so I was not, I think that actually was very helpful to kind of get through people.
To have a time limit, and standing up here is okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so.
One of the ideas that we tossed around it with some of the department managers was maybe having a person sit off to the side. I don't know if that makes it feel more comfortable or not. You know, one of the things, you know, we can't like go to the Maplewood room and have them. You know, we can't make it that informal, because then we'd be violating the open meeting law, or we'd have to let people go into the Maplewood room.
Right.
Which is, you know, for security reasons, we try not to do that. So that's kind of why we do it here, and it's so it can be cable cast,
Right.
so the residents can see what's going on.
I think it would be really helpful to have an opportunity for the people who are applying. I know that the application is available to you guys, but if they have a resume or questions ahead of time that, or references, the ability to have them gotten, you know, have a way
As
to get
part of
those
the
to you
process?
as part of the process, yeah, that would be helpful.
I do see a lot of resumes, but I haven't seen anybody give references.
Those are my only suggestions.
Okay.
My feedback would be that, you know, it may be intimidating a bit just standing there, but I think that the council, in my observation, has done a very good job of just being welcoming. You know, whether if there are 2 candidates and only one can be selected, I mean, clearly there might be somebody that isn't selected, but I think the council has conducted themselves, and all the ones I've seen, is very friendly and open. So to me, that's the biggest thing that the council can do, is to make sure that they're recognizing that the person on the other side might be a little nervous.
They're encouraging, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
great.
Okay.
Meltzer?
Yeah, my job, I'm a recruiter. I work in human resources, so I interview people quite a bit. So my interview for this was years and years ago, so it's not super, you know, fresh in my memory. But I tend to find that people are more relaxed. Like, they're true answers and what they're really thinking and feeling come across, the more relaxed that they are. And I think preparation helps that quite a bit. I remember receiving a call that walked through, okay, this is, what's going to happen. You should be here at such and such time. I remember being told that it would be televised, so that it wasn't a surprise to me. When I walked in and there's cameras, because I hadn't been in this room, prior to that. But just, even maybe a little bit more information of, it'll be the council that's asking questions. These are typical questions that are asked. So some people like to kind of prepare that because some people think very well on their feet, and other people like to do a little bit of homework first. So I think, if anything, maybe there's like a written information sheet about preparing for your commission interview that would be emailed out with directions, location, time, confirmation, just those kinds of things that really kind of get everything set, and then it's all there, and people can feel a little bit more like, okay, I got this, I'm ready.
I know Lois calls to confirm to make sure everybody's coming, because there's nothing worse than having the council waiting for a candidate and no one shows up. But I think having her maybe explain or send something out, saying your interview time will be this, and this is a little bit of what you can expect, or even doing that on the phone. Those are really great ideas. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
Oh, Commissioner Sin?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's been about 3-4 years ago before I had my interview. I don't remember it as being any real stressful.
Okay.
Kind of depends on the person. I've been on commissions before, but I felt that the council and the mayor made me feel welcome.
Good.
So that helps a lot.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate your feedback, and I will be asking all the boards and commissions, so maybe we'll see some common themes and suggestions, so I appreciate that. And once again, thank you for the work that you're doing, and to Sean, you guys are really making a difference in our city, so thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay. Next up, we have the Maplewood Nature Center Master Plan, and I'm going to talk slowly because she's coming back into the room and articulate it very clearly. But we have a presentation by Ann Hutchinson, lead naturalist from the Nature Center. Ann, you want to go ahead and take it away?
So if we could get the PowerPoint, please.
Chair, Commissioners, thank you for allowing me to, see, is this on?
There we go. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to come talk about the Maplewood Nature Center Master Plan. This plan was called for in the Maplewood Parks and Recreation System Master Plan, as well as in the 2040 comprehensive plan by the city of Maplewood. And so last July, we started the process for looking ahead to the future and seeing where we should go from here. So we have hired HKGI consulting and planning firm, and they have allowed me to, this is their PowerPoint, and have allowed me to come give you an update on that. So the overview of for the Nature Center Master Plan is to just explore what's working, what's not working, and what ideas should be considered for the future. And as I said, we hired them in July, and last November we had some assessment meetings. We did a tour with the architect. The consultants have done some site analysis and mapping. We did a site and building evaluation, and are just finishing conducting program marketing and operations evaluations, just finishing the community and stakeholder survey, and then we're also kind of finishing conducting staff and stakeholder input sessions. And from all that, they're going to gather everything together and write up a vision, goals, and strategies for approvals. So we want to, as part of that, we do want to see concept drawings for the Nature Center campus. They're going to develop some implementation and a phasing plan. So it's supposed to be a two-part plan. We're looking at short-term and long-term vision. Short-term strategies, immediate to short-term things that can be done in the next 1, 2, 3, or 4 years, as well as looking ahead maybe 15 or so years for bigger ticket items or bigger vision planning or things that are more complex. Anyway, so if you look at the items there under develop the master plan, you can kind of read through them. We are hoping to have a public meeting in April or May. We're conducting meetings with staff, reviewing concepts, and then going through the approval processes for all of those things, which is why I'm coming to the ENR Commission meeting tonight to kind of give you an update, and we'll be coming back again with the final things. So this is a quick overview of the schedule. We got a little bit behind because of holidays and snow, but we're pretty much on schedule. So we're just finishing establishing vision, goals, and strategies. We have one more vision meeting tomorrow. And then they're going to take everything back and start doing some writing. And then April, May, hopefully by the end of May, we'll have the final approval. Quick overview of the schedule right there with task number 3. Okay, just a quick reminder of the Maplewood Nature Center's mission is to enhance awareness of land, water, and wildlife resources and to empower the community to become stewards of the environment. So one of the goals and objectives, or some of the goals and objectives for master planning are to ensure that future investments are grounded in a strategic vision for the Nature Center. We're hoping to suggest updates or additions to programming and interpretation or to receive input on that. We want to make sure we're expanding and developing partnerships for programming and support of the Nature Center. We want to ensure that building and maintenance of the facilities are not only adequate, but positioned to meet the demands of the next 20 years. They will be providing concepts for future site amenities and facility needs catered to accomplishing the desired vision, as well as being sensitive to the site's natural resources. There'll be phasing and implementation recommendations, and we hope to build relationships and cultivate, and hope we have built relationships and cultivated buy-in through this process. So we'll take a quick look at existing conditions on the site. We are a fairly small site, 40 acres. We have 4 entrances, so part of what the consultants are doing are looking at wayfinding, signage, how people get around it within the trails, as well also as how they can find the site itself from cars and streets, and et cetera. They are taking a close look at the campus, so the yard area where the Nature Center parking lot and visitor center is, and it's kind of a small area, 1.1 acres. There is a wetland buffer. We have 17 parking spaces. We have a little shed. The building is about, I think, around 1,400 square feet. We have a little outdoor amphitheater, play yard, and all the kind of hashtag red area is if we wanted to put an additional building or anything up, like a storage shed, that's where it would have to be within that area. Just a little quick review for folks about what we do and what we provide at the Nature Center. We do educational programs presented by the naturalists. It includes service learning, volunteer programs. We have a staff visitor center all year, Tuesday through Saturday, 8:30 to 4:30. A yard with demonstration wildflower gardens and rain gardens, picnic and nature play yard, trails, variety of habitats. At the visitor center, educational materials and in-person resources for the public, a little library, people can check out things. Citizen science monitoring programs we do with adults, snowshoe rentals, and room rental for birthday parties, and more. So this is our attendance for 2018, 8,500, and it's kind of broken down here, this nice little pie chart. Our bulk of our visitation is building visitors. We do a number of public programs, so this is approximately 1,600 people have attended public programs, about 900 K through, I guess that's K through 12 school groups. Youth groups is community groups like scouts and that sort of thing. Outreach special events, so on and so forth. So just some fun photos from some of the programs we do. This snow is from last year. We were planning on April, I think it was 14th or whatever, to do water quality studies with high schoolers, and then it snowed, 12 inches. But we had scheduled service learning with Century College a couple days prior, so we sent out the college kids to shovel the boardwalk for us. And then they drilled the holes in the ice for us, so that was awesome. And we like to teach them as well, so we did a little practice on salt education and how to salt. The other picture is buckthorn removal, and we coordinate the citywide buckthorn removal, which can also take place on parks and open space sites, City Hall campus, and other natural areas throughout the city. So Nature Center, we have a nice little nature center with visitor center, exhibits, and educational materials, a lot of touch and see items, skulls, furs, etc. We do have the trails and grounds, the 600-foot floating boardwalk, which is a great amenity. The wildflower gardens, solar panels, and then a big part of our program is volunteers. We do have, I think last year we had about 2,100 volunteer hours from not just both service learning groups, individuals, Rotary groups, 3M, that type of thing. And we cater to all people, all ages, all year, from preschool, puppet shows to snowshoeing and heritage programs, etc. So some notes on what we've heard so far from the stakeholder meetings. MNC, or the Nature Center, is more than just educational programs. It influences policy and practices in other city departments and local organizations, as well as helps educate visitors about how to be sustainable in their own neighborhoods. Increased awareness of the Nature Center and its broad impact in the community is needed. We still get comments about how people have lived here for, I just had one the other day. Somebody said, I worked at 3M for 17 years and I never knew the Nature Center was here. And of course, she discovered it after she left 3M. The broad range of ages served as an asset to continue to build on, and we have done a lot of programming at satellite sites such as Fish Creek and the neighborhood preserves. There's 14 neighborhood preserves, and it is somewhat challenging. So one of the things we talk about is the need to haul supplies to various sites, and is there a way we can make that more efficient? New opportunities can be arising at Wakefield with the new building. There's always City Hall campus, Fish Creek, and other places in the city. This visitor center has some space limitations affecting large groups. School groups often want to bring 3 or their whole grade level, but we have to limit it to 2 classes. Sometimes that affects general visitors. When the groups are on site, they can't go in the touch and see room, et cetera. And then storage office and public gathering spaces are all a bit small. Staff feel like they're about at capacity. And then volunteers and service learning opportunities are an important part of MNC success, but it's important to recognize that it takes staff to manage these things, and that takes time, et cetera. Of course, we have great habitat and open space site there. It's a beautiful little gem in the middle of the city. And we want to continue reaching out to partners. We did have a meeting with other Nature Center directors that were of comparable nature centers. We met with folks from City of Fridley, City of Richfield, and City of St. Louis Park, who have city nature centers, as well as a couple of the county nature centers. And it was a fantastic meeting. It was really interesting to hear how they're doing things, so we get some input from that. I don't necessarily want to read every one of these. You can read most of these, but you know, things like weekend hours are a popular time for birthday party rentals, and we do that as well. One thing we found interesting, most nature centers have at least one vehicle for grounds maintenance. We do not have a vehicle dedicated for the nature center. They all found that a dedicated maintenance person is valuable, and the other things that you see on there. This was a great tip. In order to provide equitable access to information, some nature centers have tablets available at the nature centers to provide support for both visual and hearing, but as well as Google Translate for people who might not have English as a first language. So we thought that was a great idea. We don't have that yet. Having interchangeable exhibits, drop-in or open house style flexible start programs. One nature center had memberships. So, yeah. All right, and then we also did this online survey, which every commissioner took the survey, right? In case you didn't, I have put in front of you a little yellow sheet that we're also doing a little display for walk-in visitors at the nature center. So if you didn't have a chance to do the survey, especially the two questions at the bottom, what new programs would you like to see at the nature center? And what other suggestions do you have for nature center facilities or programs would be great if you want to provide some input. But at the time of this PowerPoint, 185 people had responded, but I have since talked to our consultants, and I think we're well over 200 right now. So we're really pleased with that response. Our communications department said that for surveys of this type, that's a very high number, so we were happy with that. And you can read through some of these as well. Just some interesting facts, like 60% of the visitors come from within 5 miles, but 25% do travel farther. Half are Maplewood residents, half are not, which makes sense for the shape of the city down on that leg. Most drive, but some do walk. A few people have had some trouble finding the entrance to the nature center. We were interested in 9 out of 10 respondents would be interested in attending programs or events that other neighborhood preserves have offered, which is something we're really looking at. It's interesting. A lot of people think the nature center is just for families with little kids, which we do a lot of adult programs. They don't perceive there's enough for older kids to do. The nature play yard, very popular with families and kids, often have picnics there. The majority of people spend some time in our exhibit room. A lot of people are coming to, wind down with nature on the trails and the boardwalk. So they mainly use the trails, participate in unstructured exploration and learning in the visitor center, watch wildlife, take self-guided tours, or attend a program for adults, and then public programs for families and nature play are the next common things to do, according to the respondents. They're least satisfied with benches, parking, and nature play, so I think it sounds like they would like to see some improvements in that area. Many wish that the visitor center were open on Sundays, or would at least like a remote restroom for when the building is not open. We did ask a question about, what's your favorite exhibit, and there wasn't a specific board, like the watershed board as was listed, but they did mention live animals, which we consider an exhibit, and trails and boardwalk. They want to add more seating, see more trail improvements, visitor center hours on Sundays. Other requests include outdoor shelter, more interpretive exhibits, more nature play. And then we did ask a question about, what types of program are you interested in, and interested in general nature study, environmental practices for home and yard, environmental issues. Luminary hikes was one that was mentioned. Music-centered events, so that was interesting. So the short-term needs assessment, a need for expanded storage space. Right now we're traveling 5 miles to switch off seasonal programs. We have storage up here and then we have to switch it down there. So more efficient storage would be great. We need upgrades in the office, furniture, more efficient use of space. And it'd be nice to have a little workspace for volunteers. Boardwalk upgrades or replacement, updated program interpretation and improvements to trails and yard. And then long-term, additional gathering, classroom space that addresses the need to separate the public touch and see from classroom space. maybe to have some ability to have larger groups at the site. Another idea is ability to offer programming mobily with a mobile vehicle of some sort, an eco van, or I don't know. Maybe you'll have a grand idea for us. And exhibit renovation. So here's your chance to provide some input. These are some questions you could answer for us. So if you've been to the Nature Center before, what are its strengths? What could be improved? Are there facilities or services that may make the experience more enjoyable and or accessible? And I'm just going to open it up for discussion, if that's okay.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone want to tackle any of these items or have any questions? Commissioner Sin?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. I thought I haven't been there for a while, but I thought the Nature Center was closed on Mondays.
It is closed. It's open Tuesday through Saturday, 8:30 to 4:30.
So is there any chance of opening on Sundays?
I mean, I think that's what we're looking at I mean, how would that affect staff time? And would it mean we'd have to close another day of the week, or how would that work? Those are things that we would have to address through the visioning process and figure out, balancing staff time essentially to be able to do that.
Is other nature centers open on Sundays? I'm just curious, do you know?
Yeah, other nature centers are, but they do it in different ways. Some are open a half day, some are open on call, like if they get a request, then they'll schedule something. So in other words, they're open to scheduling groups, but it may not be open for walk-in visitors, that kind of thing. So I think there's flexible ways to manage that. But it doesn't necessarily address the restroom use if you're not open to the public. But, there's other ways of doing that, right? You could put out a satellite, you could, have locking restrooms from the outdoors. That's way more expensive, but, looking at something feasible.
Thanks.
Miller?
One of the things that I thought was kind of neat when I took my boys there was there was a person who frequents your nature center area who was kind of sitting outside and was saying, "Did you see over there? Did you see what's there today?" And I thought it might be kind of cool on your outside map to say, what did you see today? So you can put on there so we know what to look for, who's out and about and who's making noise and, all of that. It's kind of neat. Especially if you have little kids, and I spent almost the entire time watching them and not being able to look up. And so to know, okay, we're
Sure.
at that spot. They said that there's something over here, or
Yeah.
there's a nest here, or there's, so that's kind of a neat thing. It was kind of cool because we had a person doing it that day.
Okay, I like it.
We can have spottings of Commissioner Miller's children.
Exactly, yeah. If I look up, then somebody's going to have to help me find them.
Great. Excellent. Well, I think that does it. Thank you so much for the update. Really appreciate it and excited to see where it goes with the master plan. So thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is 5C, Maplewood Residential Curbside Trash and Recycling Request for Proposals. And I think that one, our very own Sean Finwall was going to review with us.
Maybe another couple discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to thank Ann Hutchinson, the lead naturalist from the Nature Center, for attending tonight's meeting. And not to, I know you're really excited to talk trash here, but Ann just had a few follow-up comments.
Oh,
I just
please.
was wondering if there's a couple more discussion questions. I was wondering if I could get some input on. I wonder, can we
Do you want the?
put the PowerPoint back up?
yeah, we lost the questions here.
Yeah, there you go. Discussion questions. There we go. So if you haven't been to the Nature Center before, what might attract you or those you work with to come to the Nature Center? A lot of people say, oh, and are there any barriers that might prevent visitors from accessing or enjoying the Nature Center? I'm assuming that most everybody's been there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And if there's any winter facilities or activities that could be provided to encourage expanded year-round use. any opportunities for partnerships related to interpretation, education, programming, and marketing. And, what do you think is the preferred way for people to communicate, in the community? Do you think it's email, social media? What's your
Nextdoor.
experience that way?
Next door, our whole neighborhood does
Next
next
door?
door. Mm-hmm.
I can't keep up with social media.
I've actually gotten
What do you
4
think?
little pings from next door since we've been here. Somebody lost their dog and somebody else saw it and found them. I was gonna think. I think I saw something that was sort of like this, but where you have kind of a collaboration of people coming to build something where everyone can come in and do a couple of nails or a board, or, like I know that some of, I lived in Iowa and they were looking for a new park and they wanted people to know where it was. And so they did a big, if you come, you can help us build it kind of a thing and be a part of it. And then your name gets,
You mean
scratched
like
in it.
building a structure
Or something, like.
or something more natural resources related,
Yeah.
like for the play yard or something?
Right, yeah, I think they did it was called Eagle's Nest, and it was just like a play area, but it was every single resident came in and hand-printed 2 nails. And it was just cool, because then all of, they kind of took ownership, and then they wanted to bring family
Sure.
members,
I
and
love that idea.
that was
Yeah.
kind of fun.
That's fun.
Any barriers that might prevent visitors from accessing or enjoying the nature center?
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I think parking might be an issue there. There are a lot of people that live
Finding it.
in Maplewood, but are farther away than people in other counties nearby. And not that we're trying to keep out the other county people, but I've gone there a couple of times and found it difficult to get parking some of those times, not always.
Sure. So
Ironically, it's not very walkable either, thinking of folks that are coming from the Century Avenue side. There's not sidewalks on
Right.
Century. So I live on the other side in the neighborhoods, and that's quite walkable, but that's not the primary entrance, and people probably don't know about those entrances unless they live in those neighborhoods.
Right, not
And walk
walkable
that way.
along Century. I think they are planning sidewalks along Century, but I'm not sure when that's supposed to go in.
Well, interestingly, that overlaps with our 2019 goal. group,
Right,
one of
yeah,
them,
yeah, something we've been talking about. I do think, I mean, you have already mentioned it, so I wasn't thinking to say it, but I think as far as barriers, I do think Sunday ends up being kind of a family day, thinking of, kind of families with kids. Saturdays are sports tournaments or,
Yeah.
this and the other thing, but Sundays might be a helpful day. Wonder if one later evening a week would be helpful as well, if people are working until 5.
In the evening.
The building open till 4:30.
slot somewhere.
Yeah, I might not have something, but, if there's a sunset hike
Right.
once a month, or, a hike each full moon, there's a moonlight walk to, have an evening program from time to time might be good. I attended one of the December meetings, and I kind of mentioned too, like, I think family-centric programming seems to work. If you have kind of a program that's suitable for all ages, that's, I think, seems to be attractive to families anymore. And I was trying to think of, other adult, I thought that it was interesting, and I hadn't thought of it before, but that people aren't visiting the nature center anymore because they thought it was just for families with little kids. So I feel kind of weird making those suggestions for families with small kids. So I think that there's nothing that immediately comes to mind of like how to fix that perception, but you guys certainly do a lot and are capable of reaching out to those groups.
Related to that, I think, this might be too far afield, but I could see, like yoga at the center, or whatever. Like maybe I wonder if there's partnerships of some sort, or just simply inviting some groups or reaching out to groups to see if they would be interested in partnering to have Because that'd be amazing to go do yoga somewhere out on the boardwalk or whatever, some beautiful place.
I wonder if, church
Yeah,
groups,
or meditation, there's forest bathing is kind of a thing. And I could see like maybe teaming with some of the meditation groups in St. Paul or whatever. I mean, that could be really interesting to bring adults into it by just partnering, finding people that have a group and can bring the group in.
Well, there's those meetup place or things online where you basically set up something and people, like whether it's parents or adults or singles or whatever, and they do meetups everywhere for all sorts of things. And if you put it on there, then people could sign up to come to something. Also, my kids suggested last time, and we did not do it, just so you know, but they wanted to bring their night vision stuff. For moonless nights.
Sure.
Because they wanted to see what was out there. And I
In
thought that
between
was
the
kind of
moon.
cool, because they got those Spy Kid goggle things for Christmas, and they were like,
I love it.
let's go adventure. And I was just like, it's closed.
So maybe, I mean, we have talked about doing overnights or something.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
You know,
for
Sleep with the
sure.
taxidermy.
But it would be a bugless, safe place to pretend camping,
Sure.
for
Right.
people who aren't super comfortable with it.
Good points.
Is there like a campfire ring? You probably don't do campfires.
Well, we have one of those rings that you buy at, stores that you set up. So it's not on the ground, but we can have fires.
Yeah.
And then we have a fire and then we can put it away. But I mean, that's something that as an amenity, maybe we do need, a grill or something, or, a shelter or something where people could come after hours. But being tucked away in the neighborhood there, we'd have to think of the neighbors as well with evening use and that kind of thing. So it's
Another
pretty
kind
close
of-
to the neighbors.
Another kind of cool thing, I used to be a manager at an outdoor store, and this brought in tons of people. It was just kind of crazy, but we would look in nature for things that you could eat, and then we had a survival cook guy come and show them, like on a grill outside or on a fire pit, of what you can eat in our neighborhood and what you can't. Hey, did you know that this weed is actually, you can make tea out of it or whatever. But just kind of little things like that, and the kids got to make it, or, what kid didn't like to squish, plants together on the sidewalk to make something.
And the Parks and Rec Department, is definitely collaborating and working with the Y. I wonder if that's a potential for programming, but also supplementing staff shortage. Feeling that you guys are already stretched pretty thin with staff. Thinking of some of the camp staff that have done day camps and things like that for my kids. Maybe they're available on call for weekend programming or evening programming as needed.
Or internships for the natural resource management college people. They're a good
All
resource.
right. Well, thank you for bearing with me for those extra few minutes and giving me your very wonderful ideas. And if you have any more thoughts, just email me at the Nature Center.
Great, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Trash talk. Time to talk some trash.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, thank you, Ann, for attending our meeting. We look forward to the results of the master plan. That's good. All right, so now we're moving on to Maplewood Residential Curbside Trash and Recycling Request for Proposals. So the city currently contracts with Republic Services for trash hauling and Tennis Sanitation for recycling. Both of the existing contracts will end on December 31st of this year. So tonight, we will be reviewing the trash and recycling program highlights, and we're looking for comment and feedback on drafting a request for proposal for new proposals to come in for those services. Additionally, we are asking that the Environmental Commission form what we're calling a solid waste subcommittee made of 3 members, and that subcommittee would offer policy feedback to city staff on the draft RFP, serve on the proposal review team to review the proposals submitted in response to the RFP, and of course, update and report back to the full commission. So the timeline for this process and your commission, for sure we'll have tonight to gain some insights into what you think is important in adding to our draft RFP. And then your commission will see that draft RFP in April. And then, of course, the subcommittee will continue on from there. So I just wanted to touch base on the current programs. So trash hauling, the city of Maplewood did organize its trash hauling in 2011. Prior to that time, we had an open hauling system where you could contract with any residentially licensed hauler in the city. And we had 9 licensed residential haulers at that time. So when the city organized, the city council at that time chose a proposal where it was just one hauler for the entire city, and that was initially a 5-year contract with 2 one-year extensions. So the city did take advantage of the 2 one-year extensions, and now we're at the end of that 7 years. So the Republic Service contract, they do collect trash from all single-family residential homes in Maplewood, and then townhomes and manufactured homes can opt into the program. Because at the time when the city organized its trash hauling, it was felt that these developments were already organized with one hauler, that they would contract with, so they didn't have the same concerns as all the trucks coming and going on one particular day to collect trash. The materials that are collected by Republic Services are trash, yard waste, and they do curbside bulky item collection. The city of Maplewood purchased the carts for the organized trash system, and we offer those in 4 different sizes. And then Republic Services manages the carts. Republic Services does the billing for the trash only, and the reason there is the city of Maplewood does not do utility billing, as most residents get their water service through St. Paul Regional Water Services, so that billing comes from them. So on the trash hauling side, we had Republic Services do that. And then the prices, currently they're some of the lowest prices in the metropolitan area. It's $9.79 to $14.66 per month, depending on the cart size, and that does include the taxes and a 75-cent cart fee. So that's an overview of the trash hauling system here in Maplewood. And then touching on the recycling system, back in 2010, the City Council approved a contract with Tennis Sanitation for the residential recycling program, and that's for single and multifamily. So that includes the townhomes, manufactured homes, as well as the apartment buildings. And that initial contract ended 2013 with a couple extensions, which we took advantage of. And so now, for the first time in the city's history, the trash and the recycling contracts are aligned to expire at the end of this year. The collection for recycling, again, is residential and multifamily. And then churches and small businesses can opt into the program. And since we started offering that, we now have, I believe it's about 20 churches and small businesses that opt into the residential recycling program. It's a real good value for those organizations that don't need like a large dumpster. And then we collect the materials in carts only, even for the multifamily, it's only in carts. But Tennis Sanitation does supply those carts in 3 sizes. And then for recycling, the recycling fee is actually added to the residential water bill. So the city of Maplewood tax that fee onto the residents' water bill. St. Paul Regional Water Services then charges the city for that service. And then Tennis Sanitation bills us overall, and we pay them. And that gets a little confusing for residents. It's like, well, why isn't my trash bill and my recycling bill the same? The prices right now, Tennis charges the city $2.86 per household per month. Again, that's a very low fee in the metropolitan area. The city turns around and charges $3.54 per household per month to the resident, and mainly that added fee is to cover the cost of the city's recycling program. So there's an overview of our 2 programs. And I wanted to update you on Ramsey County support for this request for proposal, because it can be a lot of work and a lot of technical requirements involved in drafting an RFP and reviewing those proposals. So Ramsey County does offer a program to cities within the county. They call it their Public Entities Solid Waste Technical Assistance Program. And Foth Infrastructure and Environment, who's the county's solid waste consultant, will assist the city of Maplewood in drafting an RFP and review of proposals. So that'll be a service that is free to the city of Maplewood as making improvements to our overall recycling and reduction of waste. The county, it should be noted that they're generally supportive of cities releasing RFPs for these services rather than just continually negotiate, because they find that a city can make more substantive improvements to the solid waste system, including recycling enhancements, rather than just always focusing on the price, which of course is an important element too. But when you're renegotiating a contract, usually you focus only on the price. So with that, I wanted to outline a few things that you might want to consider for the RFP. And I outlined in those items in your staff report on page 3 through 5. There's about 12 items. So I'll briefly touch on them. Bundling the contracts versus 2 contracts. So currently we have 2 contracts, 2 haulers. But there are some efficiencies that can come from bundling the contract with just one hauler processing both the trash and recycling. One of the efficiencies might be, the billing. So the one hauler could do the trash and the recycling billing. Then the city doesn't have to tack that bill onto the water bill and get charged by St. Paul Regional Water Services. Mixing and matching of equipment. One hauler can collect both trash and recycling. The communications piece, I think, would be improved. When you have 2 haulers communicating to our residents, there can be some overlap in communications. We did have a few little snafus this winter. We had a challenging winter with a lot of weather incidents. And one week, Republic Services had to cancel collections because it was so icy. But Tennis Sanitation was able to, because those recycling trucks are not as heavy perhaps and didn't have the same concerns. So they notified the residents that the trash hauling would be delayed one day. Well, the residents, and I would too, just assumed that meant that the recycling would be delayed as well. So people did not put out their recycling, and then the day when it was going to get collected, it was missed. And so then the next day when they put it out, it wasn't picked up. So you can see how the communications could be improved, which is one hauler. Pay-as-you-throw is something that we really wanted to consider in our initial organized trash hauling request for proposal. But at that time, just organizing a trash hauling system was quite complex and controversial, so it was difficult to implement something like that. But the pay-as-you-throw, what we're referring to is not, weighing your trash and then requiring you to pay whatever it weighs, because that technology currently is not there. But the pay-as-you-throw would have more variables in the pricing structure. So the 95-gallon would be, more expensive, a more variant level than the smaller cart, the 32-gallon. And basically that 95-gallon is subsidizing the reduced cost of the smaller carts. Of course, the intent then is you're reducing your waste, increasing recycling. So that's something we'd like to look at in this RFP. Multifamily recycling dumpsters, as I indicated, Tennis currently rolls out carts for all the multifamily, including apartments. And there's some large apartments, and they have to roll out like 20 carts on a recycling day. So that can be challenging. And then in regard to the carts, As I indicated, Maplewood did purchase the trash carts back when we organized the trash hauling. We charge 75 cents per household per month to pay for those carts. And that was funded by a utility bond, which will expire at the end of this year. So the RFP will give us an opportunity to review that cart fee. You know, we'll still have to probably charge something, you know, for replacement carts, but maybe it's not that 75 cents, or it offers an opportunity to review that. But by purchasing those carts, we really leveled the playing field so that small haulers can put in proposals for your city trash or recycling, in this case, just trash. Because of course it is quite costly to roll out 15,000 carts, which is what we have here in Maplewood. And it also allows the city some flexibility to make changes in haulers in a timely fashion, you know, if an issue does arise, because, well, there are carts, so all we have to do is get another company to come pick up the trash. So we want to look at an opportunity for purchasing recycling carts and really focus in on a grant opportunity that's out there for cities by the county. And what the county will do is pay up to 50% of the cost of the carts. And here in Maplewood, there are currently 15,579 carts out on the streets for recycling, which of course are currently owned by tenants. But if the city purchased the carts at approximately $55 per cart, is what the county told me to estimate, you know, we're looking at $850,000 some dollars. And so divide that in two, you know, you're looking at $428,000 grant, which is a huge opportunity. So it's something that we really should review as we roll out the RFP. Again, billing, determining who does the billing for the trash plus the recycling. 5-day collection schedule. Right now we have collections on Monday through Friday. So the hauler can only collect on that one day in one neighborhood. And we've always had some concerns with the Friday collection day, especially in the summer. People go out of town, they roll out their carts in the morning, and then unless they get a neighbor to roll it back or something, the carts sit there all weekend. And, you know, that's an opportunity for possibly theft or, you know, plus it's unsightly. So this might give us an opportunity to really review those routes and determine if it's feasible to just have four-day routes. Customer service. One of our haulers, well, it's Republic Services, they have a national calling service. And the other hauler, Tennis, it's all local. So when you call, at times, the National Calling Center doesn't really know, you know, where Maplewood is. They don't know that you have a contract. So it can be confusing at times unless it's handled appropriately. So that's another thing that we can address in an RFP. The yard waste, currently Republic Services offers a 65-gallon cart for yard waste collection, and that's at an additional fee. People can opt into that program. But we have heard that that 65-gallon cart is not adequate, especially with some of the larger Maplewood lots and a lot of trees in the fall. You know, you fill up that cart in a second. Future organics recycling. So of course this is something that is the future. We need to start collecting organics, get that out of our trash system. The MPCA reports that approximately 40% of our trash now is organics. So if we can remove that from the trash and recycle that into compost, of course that will be beneficial. And we're working with Ramsey County and Washington County. You know, they purchased the Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center in 2016, and since that time have been doing some studies on how to best collect organics curbside. So right now we don't have that infrastructure in place, but it will be within about 2 years, so during the duration of our next contract. So we really need to ensure that the RFP outlines how that will take place. City facilities, trash hauling. When we organized trash in 2011, we had a contract with Waste Management to collect our citywide, or our City Hall campus trash, so we weren't able to kind of lump that into the contract. With the recycling contract, Tennis Sanitation collects the recycling right here from city facilities for free as part of the service. So we really want to make sure that we lump that into the trash hauling piece as well. And then the spring cleanups, every year we host a spring cleanup where residents can bring in bulky items to dispose of, things that you normally can't get rid of at the curbside, like electronics, things like that, or that it's difficult to get rid of at the curbside. And initially, during our organized trash hauling, we attempted to roll in the spring cleanup into that contract, but again, the complexity of organizing and the controversial nature of it all, we had to kind of take that piece out. But now I think that's something that we should look at, because each year now, we have to go out and get bids for that service. And then the bulky items, Republic Services does collect the bulky items curbside at a rate of $5 to $30 per item. But we really should review how the city is doing that and the cost of that for our residents. You know, there's some programs out there where residents can get rid of a certain number of bulky items a year for no extra cost as part of the program. And then finally, emissions. An RFP and new contract may allow the city an opportunity to require more energy-efficient trucks, which would reduce, of course, emissions here in the city. So thanks for bearing with me as I went through all of that, but as you can see, there is a lot to consider when, you know, you have an opportunity to create a whole new program or update your program. So these are a couple things that I wanted to outline and get your feedback so that I can bring this to the consultant. And we'll draft that RFP and bring it back here in April for your review. And then also looking for that motion for a subcommittee, we'll call the Solid Waste Subcommittee, to review those proposals. And also, on occasion, maybe we'll need some advice from the subcommittee on drafting that RFP as well. So thank you.
Excellent. Sean, I have a few comments that I'll start off with, or a couple ideas. Comments are, the pay-as-you-throw is awesome. We definitely need that because it's probably the strongest strategy that we have to try to help us reduce. And I also think future organics is super awesome, so those are really exciting. The other is a suggestion that item 12, the emissions, I think is superb, and I think the RFP could also potentially tie that together with item 6, which is the number of days, the collection schedule, because not only energy efficient trucks, but also energy efficient mapping. A 4-day schedule may or may not be more energy efficient, but it's easy to, well, I shouldn't say it's easy. It's possible to map out a recommended route and actually calculate GHG emissions of one versus another. So I think that's something that having an indication of that, whether it's a requirement of the RFP or a requirement of service. In other words, do you select on it, or do you say you have to do this before you actually begin your collection? Then beyond that, a couple ideas I'll just throw out that might be kind of wonky, but it's the way I work. First is, I think it would be awesome if we could, within our RFP or within the service, have some strategies or opportunity to engage with strategies to understand the composition of waste a little bit better. The information that rolls up to MPCA through the counties is pretty good in terms of tonnage, and we have a good sense as to how much waste in general, and roughly X number of tons are going to landfill, X number of tons are being recycled. But we don't really have many good mechanisms yet in terms of understanding what is the composition of the stuff that's going into the dirt. And I think ultimately, not just for Maplewood, but for the state, we have to start figuring out how do we get our arms around what the composition is that goes into landfill so that we can start coming up with better strategies to keep that from happening. So I don't know exactly what's in there. It could be that maybe there's, once within the contract cycle, they have to help us do a composition study or something. but I think it's worth talking about. The other item that's a little kind of floaty and fluffy, but, our recycling market is weakening. And so I would really love to explore, are there strategies that we can implement through this RFP or through a relationship with our recycling hauler to explore how can we strengthen, what can Maplewood do to help strengthen the market so that we can better assure that we have a long-term future for our recycling, because we're going to keep working to try to get more recycling created, less trash, more recycle. And so what can we do as a city to help partner with our recycling hauler and others to make sure that they have a place to go, So that's all I have out there. Commissioner Miller?
Oh,
Did
I
you-
was
I
just
say-
going to make a motion for a subcommittee.
You have at it.
I make a motion for a subcommittee. That was one of the actions that we needed to look at for 3 people for a subcommittee.
Awesome. Are you volunteering to be on it also?
Sure.
Do you have a second for the motion for the subcommittee?
I volunteer,
Yeah, all right.
Are you seconding or volunteering for the sub?
volunteering.
Here's a volunteer.
I'll second the motion.
There you go. Thank you.
We have a motion to create a committee. We also have 2 volunteers. Might we edit the motion to actually identify who is on the committee? With that.
Well, you could just ask who wants to be on it. We could just tell you. I volunteer to be on it.
I'd volunteer as well.
Okay. Awesome. So we have a motion to establish a committee. We
Seconded.
have 3 volunteers. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion to establish a committee with our 3 commissioners volunteering? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Can
Is that
I-
what you need? Oh,
Oh, I just want to go back to the discussion if that's, we're okay. Okay, forgot our motion. So I'm not very familiar with what an RFP looks like. I haven't had that experience before. As I was reading through, number one, under the RFP is talking about bundling versus 2 contracts. And I do agree that there's some efficiency within that, but I also want to make sure that there is a continued way to have those be separate companies, just for allowing local businesses to compete, for these contracts and things like that. So, if it does end up continuing to be 2 different companies for trash and recycling, or 2 companies or 3 companies going together to bid for, one or the other together, that, maybe then efficiencies in billing can be coordinated by having those 2 companies talk, like removing the city a little bit from the billing process by having the arrangement that we have with St. Paul Water to bill for recycling, that the companies are partnering to, for billing and for customer service and things like that. Just like I said, I'm not super familiar with how that RFP process works, but, I think that there's some weighting to that, so that it's not an automatic elimination if it isn't one company bidding for all the services, but just ways to, for companies to be creative in responding to the proposal. I don't know if anybody has any light to shed on that, or if, we can kind of wait to see.
I think last time we looked at RFPs, you gave us an example of the one from before, the prior year, or prior 2 years, I believe, when we looked at the trash and recycling a couple years ago. If we had that to kind of go off of, that might be a good, a reference for us. Also, I kind of like the idea about the option for smaller companies to kind of come together to take parts of routes. Every time I hear one company being in charge of everything, it kind of makes me nervous. So, but just, trying to support local communities might be, I can see there's benefits and pros and cons for both things. For having everything under one roof, where it's, the communication is very fluid and they have it all in one spot, as opposed to, multiple smaller companies. But I guess in my opinion, I just want to at least kind of rumble with that a little bit and see, maybe have some input from residents about what they think and if there's actually even an interest or companies that are interested in that.
Yeah, that wasn't prohibited, in the initial RFP in, I suppose it was 2010 and 2011 that was coming together, but there weren't any companies that combined
Right.
their bid. But I believe that happened in St. Paul, and it, so that might reflect differently when we put the next RFP out. We might receive a
Exactly.
different response. I think our commission, is in an interesting position in that we have both tennis and Republic Services come annually to give their report to us, and it's interesting interacting with those two companies from our commission. That we have a local company and we see the owner, co-owner, here each year. And their responsiveness to our questions, I feel like they ramp that up each year. From year to year, Republic Services has very complete information, but their resources are also, greater too. So just has been really interesting working with two very different companies.
Yeah.
Within
We
this.
were just talking about the tennis also was really moving forward with a lot of the technology of the GPS and how to view what's being thrown into their carts and things like that. And I don't want to not pay attention to that because that really could help us with further recycling down the road or recycling other things or maybe, biofuels in the future kind of a thing. But I think that it would be important to look at purchasing carts from them or whoever, because I think that really saves the city money. And I'm trying to think, they are the ones that did the GPS, is that right? Am I remembering that correctly? The tennis?
Republic, are you talking about the RFID?
Yeah.
Technology? That was
that-
that was Republic. That was the trash.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it was the
And it hasn't been reliable as of our
Right.
last.
Pilot that's not quite.
pilot,
working
right?
yet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
But yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may, to comment on a few things here. So an RFP can be drafted so that they can bid on different packages.
Okay.
One being a bundled package, another being bid on just the recycling or just the trash or both. When we had the organized trash hauling RFP, you may recall, we allowed, at that time, because we had the 9 residential trash haulers, we allowed smaller companies to bid on just one district if they wanted to, or they could combine with another contractor to bid on the overall RFP. So we opened it up to a lot of possibility because we were, as a city, trying to work with the current haulers to get everyone involved, but to have an organized system. But the city of Maplewood organizes trash hauling under the old solid waste statute. And because of the city of Maplewood's experience, the legislature actually modified the solid waste statute to allow cities to have a better process for organizing trash hauling. So now the cities that are organizing under the new statute, like St. Paul, they're allowed to, just sit down with the haulers right away and say, okay, let's divvy up the city. How can we do this and what's fair? So that all the haulers can maintain their current households and so forth, where the city of Maplewood, we didn't really have that opportunity because we were required to do this whole public hearing stating that we were going to organize our trash hauling, and it just became so, controversial right away that no one wanted to sit down and talk. So, but you are correct, Commissioner Paulzer, in that, you can do different package opportunities, and that's what we're proposing to do. We did hear from the city council during workshop that that's one thing that they really wanted to ensure we allowed was either just recycling and just trash or a bundling. So, because there are companies out there that don't do trash hauling but would be interested in collecting recyclables here in Maplewood.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Sin?
Oh, yeah, this is a question. I know that the current contracts, there were 1-year or 2-year extensions. Has there been any direction from the city council or anybody that we're going to continue that process or not as part of the RFP? Would that be included?
The RFP will outline the contract term, so it'll say, so everyone is bidding on the same item. And then the contract itself might outline 1 or 2 year extensions. But it should be noted that whether it's in a contract or not, as an example, Tennis Sanitation, their contract didn't have this extension at the end, but our attorney indicated that, it's still okay in that instance to negotiate for extensions. So, but it's a little bit more clear cut if you can just put it right in the contract stating that the possibility is there for extensions. So that'll be something that we'll look at with the Solid Waste Subcommittee and when we bring that draft RFP back.
Thanks.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much, Sean. I think you have what you need. You have what you came for. So that's good. It's good trash talk. It was good trash talking with you. Next item is unfinished business, 2019 goal implementation plan. And again, our very own Sean was going to beat us into submission on this, I think, to wrap this up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just summarizing what took place last meeting. I think I got it down, but you let me know if it's wrong. So during the Environmental Commission in February, the commission took a look at the action items that we knew we were going to be reviewing this year, which includes, of course, the trash and recycling contract, as well as the climate adaptation plan. So those are the 2 big items that we know we are going to advance this year. And then you discussed some of the goals that you wanted to accomplish in 2019. And I think we kind of struggled with this, knowing that 1 year flies by and now we're already in March. And how do you accomplish these things? So you really wanted to look more strategically at the planning process rather than saying, well, this year we're going to do this and this and this. So you wanted to kind of strategize in the areas of energy, accessibility, which included local foods and trails and transit, and creating a funding mechanism for sustainability projects. And then you branched off into subcommittees, so the members that were here at the time, we have for energy, Commissioner Miller had volunteered, accessibility, Commissioners Miller and Buttleman, and then sustainability budget, Chair Redbin and Commissioner Sin. So the purpose of this is just to kind of keep you on track and make sure you finalize the goals and then come up with a plan for implementing those. So with that, I'll just open it up to the commission for comment.
Excellent. Any questions? Commissioner Miller?
We normally have this in here as a goal, but the education, just general education, and then we had action items that we could complete underneath that the education being the goal. But then I noticed that when I looked in the comprehensive plan, there were some actual action items that we could probably take on that could be completed. Identifying areas on city-owned land that need wetland buffers and maybe make some actual action plans to create buffers or strengthen them, pollinator and wildlife corridors, things like that, that are already on the strategic plan for the city, on the comp plan for the city that we could maybe take on to help the city get their goals.
I think that's a great comment, and I'm wondering if perhaps each of the committees, subcommittees could perhaps explore those, and because some of those might easily fit
Absolutely.
within one of those committees, right? Where somebody each can say, hey, we can take on that bullet point.
Right.
So I think that's partially what we were, if I recall our conversation last month, the ability to have each of these little subgroups try to identify what could you get done this year, and how can we set up a conversation that is a little bit more lasting so that we can start putting into place ideas for next year or the year following. So we start creating a bit of a conveyor belt of work to be doing. So that might be a way to do it, is for as each of these subcommittees get together, perhaps dust off the comp plan and try to identify a bullet point or two that,
Right.
hey, we could get this done while also looking into long-range
Right.
strategery.
Good word.
That would be, I think, my suggestion
Okay.
that I'd offer up that each committee could look at.
Because I just realized that for our goals, we don't have anything for education for the public. And I think that's something we should probably look at, and we usually do include that. So that I guess my thought would be to add a number 4 as public education and collaboration or something, I don't know.
Filter?
Yeah, I was thinking about that last month, and I apologize I didn't bring the packet from last time, but our information last time went through really the purpose of our commission for existing, and education was on there. And of having education as a goal in previous years, I think that that's sort of a given. Like, I don't think that we need to add it.
Okay.
So the Waterfest, some of the activities that we do surrounding education and collaborating with the Nature Center end up sort of being built in my opinion, with the action items that we're doing. So if, it sort of falls into that category for me, where I didn't feel like we need to continue to call it out separately,
Okay.
because it's right in our purpose
Okay.
of our commission.
I was just thinking if we had that as a goal, then we could put action items to actually create pamphlets or create, have something we can check off action items underneath those things instead of underneath our purpose.
Yeah.
So either way, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I just wanted to make sure because it wasn't on this. I think we have to do at least one PSA this year. We all have to be on it.
Awesome.
I think also, to Commissioner Redmond's point, each of the subcommittees, if there's a certain thing you want to focus on,
Right.
such as, so the accessibility. We know that our comp plan, there's a lot of work that was done in the transportation section on, the walkability and the missing links in Maplewood, and it calls out timelines for improvements of that. So you take a look at what work has already been done.
Right.
And then you move forward with your recommendations and work. And then maybe there's, from that, you decide, well, we're going to do a PSA on, I don't know, how to ride a bus to the farmer's market, or whatever,
Right.
And we do have this communications department now, and they're doing a wonderful job with videotaping and doing PSAs and getting the word out for us. So
I think we should be
that's a
on
real
it.
asset that we should tap into.
Yeah.
For sure.
Andrew. Awesome. Are there anything else? One thing I'll point out that I think that our energy subcommittee looks a little lonely. Not that you, I'm sure, can't do an awesome job by yourself, but
I think we should be part of that.
I think we probably need somebody else on there.
Please.
I'm happy to offer my name up, but I don't want to offer my name up and exclude somebody else from doing it, so. Going once.
I didn't volunteer for any commissions, just feeling like I didn't have the time to do that. But I remember, part of that was that we didn't have all commissioners in attendance, and we have one vacancy right now as well. So I wanted to make sure Commissioner Okeson had opportunity, and new commissioner as well. So I think that it can be fluid who's on that. So if you were feeling like you'd be willing to join, if we added you to that now, we could always switch that out as,
Absolutely,
future times too.
Yeah, I'd be more than happy to be fluid with it. So I'll add my name, if that's okay with the group, and then we can revisit it with missing commissioners here. Okay.
I think that'll still just be 2 people, so there's actually a spot open on every single one anyway.
I'm sorry, say that again?
That will make only 2 people on each subcommittee, and so
Right,
there's
so we
still an
can have
open
the other,
spot.
yeah, that's very true. In fact, 3 is kind of nice. It makes
Yeah.
makes the work go easier.
It does.
And
For
am I-
Sean.
Am I recalling that the intention is that the full commission would be aware of when the subcommittees are meeting so that they could attend and help as needed?
Well, as we
Quorum.
have, as
Right.
we've been reminded here, even this
I know.
afternoon, and this evening. Yeah. I think the intent would be that certainly each of the subcommittees will be bringing back their work. But I think we don't want to invite others to attend. We can invite others to sign up, and each, as Commissioner Miller was just pointing out, each has space for one more before we run afoul of any concerns.
Well, and we can always come back after we've met and
Right.
say a need.
And
We really do need another person on this commission, kind of a thing, too.
Re-invite somebody to join.
Put a little pressure on you.
But I think because we have space, I would say don't be bashful. If you want to be on one of these subcommittees, go ahead and shout it out now, or you can always feel free to let Sean know. And then I think each of these, we have to then get the ball rolling on setting up a meeting.
Yep.
And we can do that through Sean so that she can help us flag if somebody's raised their hand to be on one of the subcommittees, just in case you get an email next week or something.
I'll send out a follow-up to the subcommittees, getting you motivated to take action.
That's right.
All right.
Sorry.
Sounds good.
Sounds lovely. Great. So I think that wraps up that item. Next, we have a space holder for visitor presentations. We have some wonderful visitors.
Hello.
In case anybody wants to make a presentation.
Or come up, introduce yourself,
Say
say
hi.
what you were looking for.
Not mandatory, but, you know.
You absolutely can. Oh,
What?
Coming?
There's movement.
yay!
Great. You can just introduce yourself, where you live.
Yeah. My name is Keely. I'm with Conservation Minnesota. I'm the new East Metro Regional Manager. Sean's worked a bit with Julie Drennan, who was in my position before, I believe. And I am just sort of going around to East Metro environmental commissions to get to know what you guys are up to and sort of offer up Conservation Minnesota as a partner when you're doing events, or like you're saying, you're hoping to engage on your sort of collaboration front with your, strategic plan and whatnot. So we're happy to help in any way that we kind of can, and where it makes sense to kind of partner and reach out for environmental purposes. And I also wanted to announce that this year is our second annual Environmental Commission conference that we're having in April. So last year, about 30 different people from different commissions came together to kind of share ideas and talk about what challenges you were having on your commissions and in your own communities. So it is April 13th. There is a sign-up that's happening this week. It's from 8:30 to 3:30 at the Hennepin Avenue United Methodist Congregation in Minneapolis. And I believe we're having breakfast and lunch, and it's free to attend. Some of the topics will be energy, organics, water, sustainable landscaping, and transportation. So we'll kind of talk about effective residential outreach, effective business outreach, and effective youth engagement. So we're co-sponsoring this with Alliance for Sustainability, Green Step Cities, and Metro Certs. So I will give you guys my card after this as well, so if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And yeah, I'm just happy to help in any way I can. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you very much for coming. And I will plug that event. I went to last year's event. It's fantastic. It's well worth a Saturday afternoon. You get a sense of what other commissioners in the metro area are doing, and this is a great opportunity. Wonderful. Any other takers out there? That's okay. You don't have to jump up to the microphone.
Mr. Chair, I think we have some students in the audience.
Oh, excellent.
Welcome.
I bet their co-students would like to see them on TV.
Introduce yourself. Come
The peer
You don't need to,
pressure
but
is-
we will extend just our welcome and thanks for
Yes.
coming. And if you have any questions for us, we're happy
We're
to
not
chat.
scary.
Well, a little bit, but
Only when we haven't eaten anything.
getting hangry.
And Mr. Chair, while we're on visitor presentations, I did just want to mention that the change to the rules does have to go to the city council, so you won't see a change in your agenda until that time.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next item, commissioner presentations, and we have none. Next item, staff presentations. Item A, March 25th, 2019, city council meeting for wetland buffer variances.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the Environmental Commission reviewed 2 wetland buffer variances during your January meeting, both for residential homes. One was an addition and one was a lot split, with one of the homes coming closer to the wetland than code allowed. And those now will go to the Planning Commission for a public hearing tomorrow night, as well as final review by the City Council on March 25th. So, as is the custom, we would ask that a representative from the Environmental Commission attend that meeting to give a report on your commission's review of the wetland variances and recommendations. So again, that's March 25th, next
25th.
Monday.
Next Monday.
And if you're unable to commit tonight, I can send out a reminder email tomorrow, unless I see a hand right away.
Is there anybody that is really passionate about these variances that would like to go? Otherwise, I think I can go. I need to double check my schedule.
Will we know roughly what time during or like what agenda spot that is?
I'll see a draft agenda tomorrow, so I can let you know
Okay,
more information.
if you could, I might be able to do it if you're.
Okay, maybe if you wouldn't mind kind of being first chair on this, and then we can switch around if that doesn't work. I just realized I do actually have a conflict next Monday. This is in the evening? City
Correct.
Council, right? Yeah. I do have a conflict, so if you can handle it, that'd be awesome. If it turns out you can't, let me know and I'll,
It'll be time dependent. The reason being that my kid has rehearsal at the community center for a musical, so I have to be there to drop him off and then pick him up at a certain time. Otherwise, our music teacher might lose a gasket.
Commissioner Sid?
Sean, could you just send an email around when you find out when the time is? Because I can always go too if you can't, so.
Okay.
Okay.
And
I
I know
know.
Between
it's
the two of us,
it's
we
a big commitment, you know, you come to these meetings every month, and then, of course, you have to sit through all the items at the council meeting. So if no one is able to attend, staff will be there to
Yeah.
Okay.
update them on your discussion. But it's always valuable to have you there if possible.
Yeah, especially on topics like this, it's good to let them know that we care, so.
Then I wanted to update you on the spring cleanup. This year, we have it scheduled for May 11th. And that'll be at Aldrich Arena from 8 a.m. till 1 p.m. And our residents are able to bring bulky items for pretty good deal, reduced cost. We usually get about 300 to 500 vehicles coming through. So it's a great opportunity to volunteer, to do a little environmental education, because we greet with all those residents in the vehicles, and we talk with them, you know, as they're waiting in line. So keep that in mind for a volunteer opportunity from our commission here, and I'll update you again on that further.
Great, thank you.
And then Waterfest, wanted to give you a save the date reminder. So that's June 1st this year. And as usual, we will be allowed a booth that our Environmental Commission can host. We usually do it next to the Nature Center, and then partner with them to kind of complement whatever our theme is to theirs. So I see we've got some fun ideas in the works. So we'll touch on that later. And then finally, the Maplewood Nature Center programs. Again, the Nature Center, we heard from Ann Hutchinson, and the Nature Center really is our partner in environmental education, so we'd like to spotlight their programming. And I lately have been turning it over to you to have that fun. So I think I have 4 programs, and I'm hoping that the
we've-
commissioners could present those.
We have 4 volunteers ready and waiting.
All right, I'll put it on the screen here.
You want me to start?
Yeah, you're up.
All right.
It might be the organization.
This should be fun for everybody. The 2019 Beginning Bird Identification Classes for Adults. Are you a longtime bird enthusiast? Chase Davies and naturalist Connie Herr will teach how to observe and identify common urban birds. We'll look at common feeder birds, such as yellow ones, long-necked white ones, and multicolored ones, as pictured below, to learn to identification techniques and move on to other birds in different habitats. These will be Wednesdays from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., March 27th, April 3rd, 10th, and 17th. Wednesday evening classes are held at the Maplewood Nature Center. Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., March 30th, April 6th, 13th, and 20th. Saturday morning field trip locations will be determined by bird activity and weather. The fee is $60 per person for the series, prepaid. Early registration is recommended. Registration needs to be made by March 20th, 2019. It is activity number 16278. The location is at the Maplewood Nature Center.
Wonderful. I always feel like you should begin by saying, "And this is the voice of Maplewood."
And this was the voice of Maplewood.
Okay. It's the bomb. Adults and children ages 10 plus with adult. I think they're saying if you're 10 or younger, you need an adult, maybe. I think that's what they're saying. It's Saturday, April 13th from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. Prepay $8 per person by Wednesday, April 10th. It's all going to be about making and taking a scented bath bomb using simple, environmental-friendly ingredients. And I believe that's saying taking the bomb home, not taking the bath. So you can take the bath at home, not at the Nature Center. Add a few dried flower petals to add some extra pizzazz. Bring home 2 bombs, a recipe, handouts, and a mold. Wear old clothes. Bring an ice cream bucket or large bowl, large stirring spoon, and a Ziploc bag to transport your creations home. It's at the Maplewood Nature Center, 2659 East 7th Street, Maplewood, Minnesota, 55119. To register, go to the maplewoodnaturecenter.com and click on the Register Online Go button. You can also call 651-249-2170 if you need any help registering. It's activity number 16355.
All right, the next program is Nesting and Overwintering Habitat for Bees. This is a program for adults, taking place Saturday, April 27th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., and it's $5 per person. The availability of nesting habitat is a critical yet often overlooked factor impacting native bee populations. In this program, you'll learn practical approaches to create and manage nesting and overwintering habitat features for bees, including dead wood, stems, brush, rock piles, bare ground, leaf litter, and more. Approaches are relevant to gardeners, landscapers, natural resources professionals, and anyone interested in taking the next step in supporting pollinators. After classroom activities, you'll go outside to search for active nests of stem nesting bees. This is instructed by Sarah Foltz Jordan of the Xerxes Society and Colleen Sadisher of the University of Minnesota. Space is limited. Please register early to hold your spot. They're asking for pre-registration by Wednesday, April 24th. This is activity number 16358. Register at www.maplewoodnaturecenter.com and click on the Register Online-Go button, or you can call 651-249-2170. This will take place at the Nature Center, 2659 East 7th Street, Maplewood, Minnesota, 55119.
Tremendous Arbor Day celebration on Saturday, May 4th, 1 to 3 p.m. at Maplewood Nature Center. Join us in a celebration of trees and all they do for us. Fun tree activities for kids and adults. Visit with a live raptor and discover all the ways they depend on trees. Complete the tree quest. Trail to win prizes for kids and adults. Master gardeners and tree advisory volunteers will be on hand to answer questions and demonstrate how to properly plant a tree. Meet Smokey the Bear and learn about safe campfires. Build a bird feeder from ELPIS to take home. Enter a drawing for a gift certificate to purchase a tree. That's at the Maplewood Nature Center, 2659 East 7th Street, Maplewood, Minnesota, 55119, 651-249-2170. And I don't see a activity number for that one. But that, again, is on May 4th from 1 to 3.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda is to adjourn. A motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Aye.